Welcome to QX Church, qxchurch.org. I'm Pastor Scott Conway, and today we're talking about coveting. How do you resolve coveting? The last lesson in this series was talking about temptation. Temptation is when you have a desire to do something that you know you shouldn't do. Lust is when you would if you could. Now, lust is a problem because lust plus opportunity equals a sinful action. That's part of why we teach that lusting is a sin, because the only difference between the lust and the activity is the opportunity, and that once you have the opportunity, you'll take it. The kid version that I'll talk to them about is if there's this awesome game system and you want the game system, you're willing to steal the game system, but the only reason you haven't stolen the game system is you haven't had the chance to steal the game system. In which case, having not done it is no moral credit to you. It just means you haven't actually done it because you haven't had the ability to do it yet. And so other lusts are very similar, that when that lust encounters an opportunity, now you will have done it. So then the only defense there to the action level, which is a significant step up, the defense against the action level is to block opportunity. Now, coveting is related. Coveting is I'm unhappy without it. That if I don't have this thing I covet, I'm unhappy without it. Now, coveting can also be seen as lust for a possession, lust for an object, lust for something. You can almost use covet and lust interchangeably. So coveting is you're unhappy because you don't have this thing. You're unhappy because you want this thing, and there's some barrier between wanting and having. There's a discontent with not having the object of your covetousness. There's a discontent with not being able to do that which one covets to do. There's a discontent with not having that which one lusts after. Discontent, not being contented, makes you unhappy and leaves you unhappy. Covet, lust, and envy are related, of course. That's why these three are in this series together. Coveting can be seen as lust toward a possession, that I want the possession. I desire this possession. And I'm willing to bend the rules a bit, even break the rules in order to have this thing. It's a lust for ownership, that I want to have this thing and I want it to be mine, even though I haven't earned it, I don't deserve it, I'm not in harmony with how such things are acquired, I still want it. Or getting something you haven't earned. Now, this is part of where we ran into a particular problem with coveting, is because sometimes that which we covet other people have, but they have not earned it. And then we covet, and the fact that we haven't earned it, the fact that we don't deserve it, the fact that we haven't provided the necessary reciprocal values in order to get it, or that it's simply not available to us, doesn't stop us from wanting it, because maybe somebody else doesn't deserve it either. Someone else didn't provide the value. Someone else didn't do the things they would normally need to do to acquire it for themselves, but they have it anyway. Sometimes people will look at lottery winners that way. They'll look at people who just happen to invest in the right thing and it took off. And they see that as just a lucky break. And of course, people who have inherited things. But this is part of what we call the law of harmony. That's part of how such things are acquired. Someone's going to win the lottery. Maybe not on this drawing, but maybe in the next drawing or the drawing after that. Sooner or later, somebody wins. People inherit things. Now, because you inherited something, does that mean that you provided the values? No, but somebody provided the values kind of on your behalf. So if I decide that I want to send my kids to college, and I work hard, and I engage in business or investments or however I produce the income in order to send my kids to college, what did my kids do to earn their college tuition? Nothing. I did it. And when we begin to recognize how much of life is like that, how much of life is that you do receive things you don't earn. You receive things because somebody else earned it. That when you were a kid, you had a roof over your head because somebody else earned the roof over your head. When you were a kid, you had food on the table because somebody else earned the food on the table. And sometimes as we get older, we don't outgrow kind of that childish mentality that when someone else is responsible for me, because I'm a kid, of course I'm not earning it. Of course, I don't deserve it because I'm the one that produced the value where this is my legitimate paycheck. Somebody else earned it and they gave it to me. And inheritance is the same thing. Coveting can lead to people wanting others to not have blessings that they have, to not have blessings that they've earned, or to not have blessings that they deserve. And we're going to get into that concept more under envy. The 10th commandment. Thou shalt not covet. Exodus 20, Deuteronomy 5, each contain the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not covet is one of the big 10. It might come at the end of the list, but it made the list of the big 10. You shall not covet your neighbor's house, wife, servants, animal, or anything else. Now think about this for a second. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. That's your neighbor's house. He earned it. He deserves it. He pays for it. He inherited it, so his ancestors got it, took care of it, passed it down. And you might be sitting there and go, well, but I didn't inherit anything from my parents and grandparents, and it's not like he did it. That's not the point. He's in harmony with the way such things are handed down, and you're not. It's just the way things are. Somewhere in history, somebody did something that provided some values that led to this. Well, then you can get that started so that your children or grandchildren or great-grandchildren may have the opportunity to inherit. That's up to you. Somewhere in his lineage, somebody did that. Now, by the way, when you're dealing with a culture like ancient Israel or any of the old cultures with the genealogy is what is so critical. Lines of inheritance are hugely important. And not only are the lines of inheritance hugely important, what you do with what you have isn't seen as a you issue. It's seen as a lineage issue. There's something from an episode of Highlander about Japanese samurai. And Master Koto looked at his friend Duncan MacLeod and says, when you look at me, what do you see? He says, I see my friend Hideo Koto. He says, no, you see all the Kotos that have come before me, all the Kotos that will come after me. I have but one lifetime to borrow this name, and I have no right to stain it for others. And so he saw himself as part of a lineage. Most of us today, especially in America, don't think that way. That's unusual. So you shall not covet your neighbor's house, which includes you shall not be coveting your neighbor's land, your neighbor's inheritance. You shall not be coveting your neighbor's lineage. You can't have those things anyway. You have your house. You have your lineage. You have your ancestry. And you're not going to change it by deciding you don't like it. What you can do is decide you are who you are. What are you going to do so that you are an honored ancestor of your descendants? You shall not covet your neighbor's wife. That's your neighbor's wife. What if you think you would make a better husband than your neighbor is being to your neighbor's wife? Doesn't matter, it's your neighbor's wife. What if you're a woman and you think you would be a better wife to one of your neighbor's husbands? Doesn't matter, that's your neighbor's husband. That you shall not covet, you shall not be discontent because you don't have what's not available to you. You shall not covet your neighbor's servants, your neighbor's employees, your neighbor's team, your neighbor's circle of friends. You shall not covet your neighbor's animals, your neighbor's cars, your neighbor's pets, your neighbor's stuff, or anything else. You shall not make yourself miserable because you don't have what someone else has. Now think about this for a little bit. If you wanted to make yourself miserable, if this was a goal of yours, you want to be miserable, and it's a sad state of affairs that if you watch people's behavior, a stunning percentage of people's behavior is entirely consistent with a desire to be miserable. Now if you ask them, of course they'll say they don't want to be miserable, they want to be happy. But if you look at people's behavior, a stunning percentage of people behave in a way that totally supports their misery. that totally supports their own sadness, that totally supports their own bitterness, that totally supports their own woundedness, that totally supports their own victimhood and their own powerlessness. So even though someone might think that, well, I'm not doing it to me, it's happening to me, look at your choices and behaviors and say, okay, to what extent am I a participant in this? So you shall not make yourself miserable because you don't have what someone else has. Now, if you understand that it's you making you miserable because you don't have what someone else has, could you look around in life, if you decided you want to be miserable, and see other people have something that you would like to have? Is there some limit as to what you could look around at and see other people have that you don't have? There's no limit to that. You could spend your entire lifetime and still at the end of 100-year life find something else new somebody else has that you wish you had. And if you wanted to support your misery, you could make yourself miserable over this for your entire life. And you could teach it to your wife. You could teach it to your husband. You could teach it to your kids. You could share your misery with your friends and gather around your friends that will commiserate with you and help you support your misery. And you can help support their misery. You shall not seek to acquire by wrong means that which others have. That's another part of coveting. Maybe the thing you want is okay. It's fine. You can have it. It's allowed. But you haven't earned it. You haven't provided the values you need to provide for it. Basically, you can't afford it. Or even if you could afford it, you have other responsibilities you have to pay for first. And that it would be wrong to use the rent money for that thing. That's also a form of coveting. So you shall not seek to acquire by wrong means that which others have, to steal it, to be irresponsible to acquire it, to cheat the system. You shall not desire that others not have what they have. And this will be covered again next time when we discuss envy. So what's the solution to all this? How do you resolve this? Contentment. Be content. Contentment means I'm happy with what is. I'm fine here. This is good. This is all I need. Philippians 4:12, Paul talking, says, I have learned the secret of being content in all circumstances. Being content is important. He learned to be content when he has much. He learns to be content when he has little. He learned to be content when abundance surrounds him. He learned to be content in lack. He learned to be content when he's being showered with support and encouragement. He learned to be content when he was shipwrecked or in prison. Because his contentment didn't come from stuff. His contentment didn't come from circumstances. His contentment came from a gratitude for what was true. And that's the simple secret to being content. Gratitude. The attitude of gratitude is be thankful for everything you would not want to lose. The Apostle Paul was particularly thankful for the gospel of Jesus Christ. He had the gospel of Jesus Christ when he was in abundance. He had the gospel of Jesus Christ when he was standing before kings. He had the gospel of Jesus Christ when he was chained to a wall. He had the gospel of Jesus Christ when he was shipwrecked on an island. And he was always grateful for that. The rest was secondary to him. Now, to be perfectly honest, the gospel of Jesus Christ probably isn't going to make every single human being who is a Christian content. Now, if you're sitting there and you're watching your children starve, you're not going to watch your children starving in misery and dying and go, isn't life wonderful? Probably not. But you look at what are you grateful for? The more you focus on what you do have rather than what you don't have, the more you will feel happy and content. Some people think contentment is a problem. I do a lot of work with and in the self-help community, And you hear this with some consistency, that being content is a problem. You need to have constructive discontent or constructive unhappiness. And basically what they try to do is they try to take misery and make it into a virtue. So it's like having the thumbtack where you get up and get moving. If you've been around the self-help community enough, you may have heard the hound dog story. A stranger's walking by and he sees this hound dog up on the porch with his old man. And the hound dog's whimpering and whining. And he comes up, is your dog okay? He says, oh yeah, he's just laying on a tack. So well, why did he get up off the tack? It just doesn't hurt enough to move, it just hurts enough to whine. The attitude of gratitude says, let's just stop whining and let's go do stuff. This idea that contentment is bad is, well, you want the tack to hurt hard enough so that you're motivated to get up and move. Or would you rather have a grand goal to go to? What if instead of putting in a pain on the hound dog so the hound dog gets up and starts to move, what if instead there's a great steak for the hound dog to go after? Think the hound dog might get up and go after some really high quality, delicious food? Think the cat that might not move because it's uncomfortable will move when you start opening up the food can? So even animals know this. We should know this too. So some people do think contentment is a problem because they think it removes motivation to do anything. Pain is a great motivator to get you up off the couch. This is a quote from a friend of mine. It says, pain will get you up off the couch. Pain won't get you across the threshold. Why? Because if you're motivated by pain, once that hound dog moves, the tack doesn't hurt anymore. How much does the hound dog have to move? Inches. Persistent discontent leads to a life of misery. Tony Robbins, who's probably one of the most famous self-help gurus, has a story that I use a lot because his story is way better than my story is on point. The short version of his story is it has a couple of guys in the seminar he's doing. And it's kind of a smaller group, and so it's a more intimate seminar, people getting to know each other. And he's teaching some business principles, and one of the guys is taking notes. I gotta get this stuff down. I gotta take my business to the next level so that I can start making more money and stop living like a dog. Well, the guy's making like $3.5 million a year. He needs to break $4 million a year so he can stop living like a dog. Meanwhile, this other guy, he seems like he's having a grand old time. Tony happens to know he doesn't make $4 million a year, doesn't feel like he's living like a dog. Guy says, any day above ground's a great day. So to him, he's having a great day, regardless of how the day goes, because he's above ground, he's not dead. Where there is life, there is hope. Happily achieve instead of achieve to be happy. Now imagine this other poor happy guy is making $100,000. Meanwhile, this other miserable man is making $4 million. Would you rather have $100,000 a year and be happy the whole time, or $4 million a year and have been miserable the whole time? Personally, I'd rather have $100,000 and be happy. Would you rather have $100,000 a year and be happy, or would you rather have $50,000 a year and be happy? I want you to say, well, if I'm happy anyway, I'll take the $100,000. Now let's flip it. What if the $100,000 you're miserable? What if the $50,000 you're miserable? What if you can make it on $25,000 and be happy, or $50,000 and be unhappy? $100,000 and be miserable. Would you rather be miserable with more stuff, or would you rather be happy? Let's say, well, if I had that much money, then I'd be happy. Ah, that's exactly what the $4 million man was thinking. When I get to my goal, then I can be happy. I give myself permission to be happy when I get there. But then he would get to his goal, and he has a new goal, and he's miserable until he gets to his new goal, and then his next goal, and the one after that, and he lived his life miserable, a multi-millionaire. multi-million-dollar a year income, miserable the whole time. Attitude, gratitude. Be thankful for everything you would not want to lose. In the United States, we recognize a right to pursue happiness. I mean, it's part of where our country began. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Rights that we consider endowed by our Creator. That among them are the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's not all of them, but those are key. And instead, so many people pursue misery. That we're just trading for it. Our society supports it. Intentional discontent is pursuing misery. Instead, count your blessings. Take account of those things that are good in your life. Now, complacent. Being complacent means I feel no need to make things better. That's complacency. I feel no need to make things better. Now, contentment is good. Complacency is the problem. Complacency says, however things are, is just fine. And there's no desire to make things any better. It's a boring life. But I will tell you, for some people, good enough is good enough for them. So I knew a man, my age, I mean literally my age, and the life he enjoyed is he went to his job, relatively easy job, not terribly ambitious, not looking to advance in his position. He just needed enough money to live a comfortable life, pay a few bills. Didn't have that many bills, lived with his mother who was older and kind of helped take care of her a bit. And so it's in the family home, so not much in the way of rent. He handles utilities and such and whatnot, which ultimately was cheaper than it would cost him in rent. Kind of still lived in the same bedroom he grew up in. And what he liked to do is he liked to collect comic books, he liked to collect movies, he enjoyed watching them, he enjoyed reading them, and that was his life. Now some people looked at it, well, what about ambition? What about this? What about it? He was happy. Well, but he's being complacent. He's not trying to get anywhere. That was fine for him. That might not be fine for most of us. Most of us might want to have more than that in our lives. But for him, that was fine. And that was one of the things, getting some other people to understand. That's what he was after. That was his goal. He had his goal. He didn't feel the need to move forward, and that's okay. You don't have to. He was content where he was, and he was complacent, and he was okay being complacent. Well, I'm not going to show up in his life and try to make him miserable with what makes him happy and tell him he has to do something else. He's being responsible. He's helping his mom out. He's handling his bills. He has a job. He's working full time. He has benefits. He takes care of what's his to do. And he's fine. So good enough is good enough for some people. That's fine. Other people don't have to live up to my standards. You have to live up to your standards, not my standards. So long as you're good, you're responsible, I want you to be happy. Now, I don't want you to be evil and happy, and I don't want you to be irresponsible and happy, but if you're being good and responsible, I want you to be happy. He wasn't doing anything wrong. What he was doing was good. What he was doing was responsible, and he was happy. All right, why argue with it? If it makes them happy, and it's good and responsible, it's okay. It was fine for him. Now, desire. Desire, we talked about last time. Desire just means I want something. Desire is neutral. You can desire good things, you can desire bad things, you can have aspirations, goals, wants of any kind. You can have conflicting desires. Sometimes people want to do two different things at the same time. So you want to spend your money on two different things at the same time. You only have enough money to do one of them or buy one of them. You want both of them. That's a conflicting desire. You can want good things, you can want bad things. Wanting something bad is a temptation. Wanting something neutral or good is simply a desire. You can decide whether or not you act on the desire. That's up to you. But in this context, remember package deals. So when you see something that you desire, think about, well, what else is part of that package? A lot of things are package deals. Just means that they come with more than just the part we want. Houses need to be cleaned and maintained. So if you want a house, understand you're also included in that package deal of I have this house is there's maintenance to be done. There's cleaning to be done. There's stuff that goes along with owning a house. Sometimes people have inherited a house and they realize that they can't afford the property taxes. Sometimes people have acquired something and they begin to realize that there's pieces connected to something they hadn't thought much about. Like that beautiful garden that they admire so much requires some work every single day. Yeah, just hire a gardener. Okay, well then how much does a gardener cost to do that kind of work? Because then that's part of what you have to come up with in order to have such a thing. Related to this, I was enjoying how somebody looked. There was a woman who had done a beautiful job. You get around models enough and they know how to look attractive. It's their job. It's their profession. And I was particularly appreciating the job this one model did. She had done her own hair, her own makeup, and selected her own wardrobe. And so I thought that was a pretty good mix of talent. But I was also looking at it and said that, if there was someone who was looking at her instead of just going, yeah, she did a really good job with her hair, her makeup, her selection of clothes, how she maintains her physique. And so I think, oh, I want to date a woman like that. Well, I was aware of how long that took her. Do you want to be with someone where in order to go running out to the store, she needs 45 minutes of lead time just to look good enough for her to feel comfortable going outside? And then if it's a nice evening out, she needs 2 hours. One time I was dating a beauty queen, and we had a miscommunication on the time, and then we never did figure out which was which, but she was expecting me at 7, I showed up at 6. I thought I was supposed to be there at 6, so I showed up at 6, she wasn't expecting me until 7. Well, she wasn't ready. And there was this blur from her bedroom to the bathroom with a slamming of the door, and it took her 45 minutes to emerge on her rush job just to look good enough, even for me to see her, much less actually leave the house. And go, whoa, okay. Well, that would be part of the package deal. Now, related to this, highly attractive, desirable partners attract a lot of attention. And so suppose I am out with, one of these models or beauty queens. Should I be surprised when other men notice her? When other men compliment her? When other men are checking her out? When other men are waiting for me to go to the bathroom so they can kind of like slip in and kind of, probe for an opportunity to make a move? Some of those people might be people you perceive as competition. Some of them might actually be competition. People who make a lot of money. Part of the package deal often is that they work very long hours. High-paying jobs often have a lot of responsibility. High-paying jobs also often have a lot of risk. So my brother is probably the wealthiest person in the family who's had the most consistent high-level income. And what I mean by that is he's been able to find job after job. I mean, you're not even talking about his investments. He's been able to find job after job that pays 6 figures. But if he loses his job, how hard is it to replace a 6-figure job? That can be kind of tough. How many openings are there for 6-figure positions? Not a lot. How many people are looking for those positions? Probably a lot. But what if you lose a minimum wage part-time job? How easy is it to find another minimum wage part-time job? That's probably going to be a lot easier. So your risk is lower. Okay, you lose that job, you can replace that income. But you lose that job. Now what? My brother almost had to relocate his family to another state just to find a place there were job openings at his income level. Or he was going to have to take about a 40% cut in income. And they're kind of grappling with that. Many possessions, many activities, many people are package deals. If I'm dating a woman that has children from a previous relationship, package deal. that the kids come with the woman. If you're dating someone who has an ex, now this can be something. So imagine you're a woman and you're dating a man. The man's been married before. He has 2 children from a previous marriage, but his ex-wife has custody of these kids. And so they're thinking, okay, well, then I don't have to be a stepmom because the kids only come over to visit for every other weekend. And so I'm not going to be a stepmom. I'm going to be the new wife, the new missus. But then, for whatever reason, the mother can't or chooses not to maintain custody of the kids, and is going to give the kids up to her ex-husband, to their father. Now, do people usually do something like this because the kids are very well behaved and very easy to take care of and are loving and responsible? Or do they usually turn the kids over to the other parent because there's a problem? And then here you thought you were signing on for the deal of kids every other weekend. Oh, that's fine. I'll just go hang out with my girlfriend on those weekends. Or I'll go see my family on those weekends. Now you're a full-time stepmom. That you have to understand, that's part of the package deal. That could happen at any time. It's just part of the package. Related to package deal is this thing. What you see may not be what it is. So remember, what you see may not be what it is. Some things look good, but they aren't what they appear. So there's a classic movie, and you see this scene all the time when they're talking about old classic movies. The movie is From Here to Eternity. There's a romantic scene of a couple rolling around on the beach, and the waves crash over them, and there's music in the background, and it is a beautiful, romantic-looking scene. It looks romantic. But in reality, sand gets everywhere. Salt water goes up your nose. And it is decidedly unromantic. They talk to the people. It looks good on screen. It's a beautiful scene to see. But it isn't what it looks like. In the old Superman movies of Christopher Reeve, Margot Kidder, who played Lois Lane, was talking about the incredibly romantic flying scene. It says, yes, it's beautiful, it looks great, but I never want to do that again. It looks good on the screen, but it was terrible. Why? Because in order to do the romantic scene, everyone's been strapped into harnesses, and there's wires all over the place, and stuff is cutting in under your arm, and it looks good, but it isn't what it looks like. A lot of life is like that. The idea of the thing can be so much nicer than the thing itself. We call this romantic fantasy. Romantic fantasy is when you have a fantasy that something will be so romantic, you have a fantasy that something's going to be so great without thinking about what does it take to create that. And is it even what it looks like? It's closely related to package deals, but in this case, it doesn't even really have the thing that it looks like it has. So yeah, you're on the beach, you're rolling around, and the waves are crashing over you. But you look at, oh, how romantic. No, it's not romantic. Sand is everywhere. Salt water is up your nose. And if it's a California beach, the water's cold. It's not even what I think. It comes with a whole package that isn't part of the deal you sign on for, and it isn't even what it looks like. And sometimes people will pursue stuff like that, not realizing what they're signing on for. So how do we resolve all of this? Okay, we see the problem. How do we resolve covetousness? You resolve coveting starting off with a simple question. What's my version? What's my version? We're told not to covet what belongs to someone else, but we can't seek our own version of a thing. While we can't have the stuff that is someone else's, we can have our own version of that. What would fulfill that same or similar desire? Maybe, maybe a comparable thing. Maybe a better thing. Maybe something that's better suited for us and or more fully fulfills our needs. Maybe something that's in our reach. So if I stretch my finances almost to the breaking point so that I can get this awesome car. I can barely make the payments, but I have that car. Should I have that car? I might be happy when I got it, but at some point that crush of having to pay for it and being so much on edge all the time because of how expensive it is to keep and maintain might not be worth it. What might be better suited for me is something that is not quite as nice perhaps, but much more affordable for me. Again, that whole package deal. What is it about the car that I wanted? There's a young lady, she's college age, and she drives a really nice car. But here's part of the reality of the really nice car. It looks really nice. It's a really high-end brand. It's either a Mercedes or a Lexus, I think. But it's also 8 years old. So it was relatively inexpensive. But she found a very well-maintained, clean car. She keeps it clean, she keeps it waxed, she keeps it well-maintained. So it looks like she's driving a $50,000, $60,000 vehicle that costs about $15,000. And so it was reasonably affordable. Now, what brand new car could she have gotten for $15,000? Yeah, an okay one. Pretty decent one. Not as nice as the one she has, but much newer. I mean, no miles on it. And so for her, she said, okay, this is how much money I have. What do I want? And because her family owns a shop, and so any maintenance work that needs to be done or any mechanical work that needs to be done, she can get done inexpensively or free. She said, okay, I'm going to go for the older, nicer car. And it was a calculation that she made. And it was within her reach. It was better suited for her, fulfilled her basic needs, and makes her feel really good that she has something nice, but without having to pay the brand new car fees for the level of car that she has. Because one of the things about luxury cars is they tend to lose their value fast. Well, that also means you can find a used one relatively inexpensively because the cost of the vehicles drops down. And then, what is my version and what does it take to get my version? What does it take to get my version? People have what they have because that's the way the system works. Even if you feel that they don't deserve it, like they inherited it or something. They got it because they got it, because they are in harmony with the way such things are gotten. And if you want your own version of what they have, well, what do you need to do to get it? I can't decide what I'm going to inherit, and I can't decide that I'm going to win the lottery. Now, if I wanted to win the lottery, it might be helpful if I actually bought lottery tickets. So I haven't even gone that far toward a goal of winning the lottery. But I would have to understand, even if I buy a ticket, what are my odds? Even if I buy 10 tickets, what are my odds? Even buy 1,000 tickets, what are my odds? So that's probably not a good financial plan, right? So if I want my own version of what they have, what do I need to do to get it? If it's a relationship that I see that I want, what do you need to do to seek and build such relationships? How do you attract and connect with the people like the people you're looking for? Who do you need to be the dream person for your dream person? Who do you need to be the one for who you consider your one? And then seek and build those relationships. If it's a material thing, what do you need to do to earn such things, to produce enough value in the marketplace for a part of the marketplace that will provide money in return so that you can earn enough in order to be able to afford such a thing? And what you're after is content discomplacency. Now, if you look up discomplacency in the dictionary, you won't find it. Content means you're happy with where things are. Complacency means you have no desire to change it. Discomplacency means you do have a desire to change it. You are not satisfied staying still. Now, Paul says it's good to be content. We should be happy with where we are. We should be happy with what we have. We should recognize that all things that we need, that we have, came from God. Philippians 4:19, if you want an address on that one. That it's God who provides all your needs. If you had a safe sailing, that wasn't Poseidon, that was God. You have a good crop, that wasn't the goddess of agriculture, or the god of agriculture, depending upon your culture. That was God. Your baby was born healthy. That wasn't the goddess of childbirth, Hera. That was God. Give thanks to God for all the things you have that you need. And that every good and perfect gift is from above. Every good and perfect gift is from God. Be grateful to God for every good thing you have in your life. Be grateful to God for every perfect thing you have in your life. Everything that happened just as it's supposed to by cause and effect. And that's James 1:17 if you want to find that one. Now this can be by the Genesis 1:1 principle. The Genesis 1:1 principle just says it works the way it works because God designed and engineered the system. Either way, it's from God. Maybe God intervened in some miraculous way. Maybe it's what we call a low-scale miracle of synchronicity, which is the miracle of coincidence. The things just happen to come together in a way that there's a way for it to have happened, but the fact that it happened just when you needed it, the synchronicity, the miracle of coincidence. Or maybe it was a miracle of serendipity. Serendipity is what we call the happy accident. That something just happened, and when you look at what just happened, you go, oh, wait a second. That came built in with an opportunity. That there's a blessing in the middle of this seemingly random event. Or it could be something more miraculous than that. The parting of a Red Sea, the healing of somebody. Either way, Genesis 1:1 or an intervention, the cause and the fact that you can see, synchronicity, serendipity, it's still from God. And we are grateful for that. Now we should also keep growing. The Hebrews were reprimanded for a lack of spiritual growth and not being able to handle the meat of doctrine and of Scripture. Hebrews 5:12, if you want to have that one down. In the parable of the talents, the servant who didn't grow the talent was reprimanded as wicked and lazy. The servants who grew the talents, who doubled the talents, were good, were faithful, and were given much. That's Matthew 25, 14 through 30, if you want to find that one. So in this whole mix, what do? Well, you build a life. Build a life that fulfills you and enjoy it. You decide your own balance. You are a whole person, and you have a whole life. And you get to make decisions. You have choices. Now, sometimes things are decisions you may not realize are decisions. So, say I'm broke. I decided to be. I'm like, whoa, why would someone decide to be broke? Well, it's not that I sat around and decided, well, I have an idea. Let's be broke. No, it's that I decided to make decisions to do some things and not do other things, and the outcome down that path is being broke. Now, here's your basic measure. Were there any choices you made that led you to this outcome? Were there any choices you could have made differently that could have led you to a different outcome? If the answer to either one of those is yes, then you are where you are because of choices you made. Now, related to this, and this is an important part of it, You make your choices based upon information you are aware of at the time you choose. So say, for instance, if I'm looking at 2 job opportunities, and suppose I have a job opportunity to go to work for a government agency that's been around for over 100 years. And then I know if I get this job, I'm going to have a solid income, 9 to 5, and that's so long established, so well, it's a really secure income. But I'm going to make $30,000 a year. And at the same time, I have this other opportunity to go to work for the startup. And they're going to pay me $300,000 a year. By the time you have your paycheck and your benefits package and your stock options, that could be $300,000, 10 times as much. And so I choose that. But then the whole project falls apart. Goes bankrupt. I never get my money. And I'm broke. So did I sit around and decide, I'm going to be broke? Or did I end up broke in pursuit of the $300,000 a year? I ended up broke because of a decision I made. So here's part of what I would have to factor in. I had a secure option, and I had a risky option. I chose the riskier option. Well, when you choose a higher risk option, what happens? Sometimes the risk breaks against you. That's part of risk. So I ended up broke not because I decided I want to have no money. I ended up broke because I took a chance. I made a decision to do something. I looked at the higher dollar amounts. I looked at the risk. Hopefully I looked at the risk. If I'm just being greedy, I just look at the higher dollar. If I'm just being fearful, I only look at the security. If I'm making a reasonable calculation, I'm looking, okay, how much money do I need? What if it doesn't work out? Will I still be able to be okay? What's the probability as far as I see it? Is that worth pursuing? If I go do this job, does that job go away? If I go try that job, do I have a chance to go look for another lower paying government job? And when you do that calculation, you're okay, I'm going to choose that. Well, if it doesn't work out, you end up broke. Why? Because you decided. You took the chance. You took the risk. And what if the higher level job implodes because of something I did? I did it. And I need to know I made the decision. I gave up, or I got in a fight with the wrong person. What if I get in an argument with the CEO of the company? And he says, I'm not working with Conway anymore. You're fired. Who did that? I did that. Well, what if the CEO is being an idiot? He's still the CEO. He still has the power to fire me. My dad used to have a plaque hanging up at work. It says, the boss may not always be right, but the boss is always the boss. And the short version of what that means is not only does this guy have the hiring and firing power over you, he's the one with the stuff at risk. If he blows it, that's his business, he loses. If you blow it in his business, you cost him his business. So he's going to make the decisions. You might think he's being an idiot, but decisions don't get made by the person who thinks that they're the smartest in the room. Decisions get made by the person with the authority to make the decision. And that's just the way it goes. So your job is to build a life that fulfills you, and then you enjoy that life that you build. And when you begin to realize how many things are a choice, so suppose I went for the high-end option and now I'm broke. If I acknowledge that was a choice, I decided, I built this life. Now somebody, but then I'm going to feel bad, I'm going to feel guilty, I'm going to be depressed. No, you're powerful. Now, if you'd rather be miserable, well then okay. If you choose misery, if being miserable is what makes you happy, okay, go ahead. If being wounded and bitter is what makes you happy, I guess you can go that route if you want. But you can look at it and say, okay, I landed here because of choices I made. So I have the power. Because I have the power, I can decide how long do I want to stay here. What am I going to go do next? If there is a decision that you could make that would make things different than it is now, if you could do something different, initiate some action, that down that path things are different, then you have power. I could be dead broke, and I could go apply for a job. Okay, I have power. I don't have to stay dead broke. I can land here and do something. So I have power. I can still build something from right here. Even that $300,000 a year job blew up in my face. Now the thing to watch out for is, did I do something? Now I might look and balance out, okay, risks and such and whatnot, and people I can trust and count on and depend on. But the big one is, what did I do? What decisions did I make? Because that's where I have the most power. As far as what other people did, I may not have direct influence on what other people do, but it tells me, okay, I need to look out for stuff like this. I need to be aware of when people don't keep their agreements. I need to be aware that it's easy to say promises, it may be harder to do promises. A friend of mine, when he was a medical doctor, originally came to San Diego because he was promised a job with a particular income. And when he showed up, he relocated here and was told, oh, I'm sorry, I can't afford to give you the job. Well, he learned. Unfortunately, part of what he learned is never do business with Christians. Because he was so consistently being burned by Christians. But one of the things that he could much more rightly learn is to talk to someone, okay, do you have the patient load to support this position at this pay level? How guaranteed is it? How much money do you have set aside to do this? And you start asking some of these questions. I was offered a job one time, they wanted me to relocate to another county. I just told them no. Looked at their situation and said, that is not worth relocating for. That if it was a guaranteed job with a guaranteed income on like a 5-year contract, it might have been worth it. But they don't have the cash on hand to pay that kind of income. They don't have the systems in place. They would need me to do too much that had some risk involved with it. I'm not willing to relocate for that. And so they decided that they were going to relocate an office closer to me so that they could get me. They're okay. I'm willing to work for you under those circumstances. Building a life, looking at the variables, thinking it through. So if you desire something that's good to have, make it a goal and pursue it. When you have good things, enjoy them. Focus on what you do have. And here's a big one. So focus on what you do have, and focus on what you have the opportunity to get. Where is your opportunity? What are your options? Where is your power? What decision could you make right now, later today, sometime this week, anytime this month, that could meaningfully change your circumstances? And that's where you have power. Now, I'll be honest with you, you may decide to not exercise that power, and that's okay too. I have a friend of mine that looks at some of the details of his financial circumstances, and looking at the details of his financial circumstances just in a vacuum all by itself, he goes, yeah, I would like that to be different. But he also suffers from chronic pain. And he realizes, okay, many of the things I'm trained to do will be enormously painful to do. If the only priority I have is money, there's things I could do about money. The cost and physical pain because of my medical condition and how quickly I'm likely to deteriorate and die isn't worth it. The amount of money I can make doing this is the balance. This I can do without ruining my body. And so that's what he does. Another man said that I could make more money, take better care of my family. I could increase my income by like 50%. But I'm at that level now. Without a college degree, I cannot advance in my company. So he took a look at it. He figured out what it would take to advance, what it would take to get his degree, what it would take to take his classes and get his homework done. And he realized in order to fit it in with his other responsibilities, it was going to take him about 4 years. And he would basically not be able to be home and to be a dad during those 4 years. Looked at the age of his 6 kids and decided, you know what? I would lose being a dad for 4 years. Why? Why do I want more money? Help me be a dad. Do we have enough money? Yeah, it's a little tight. It's a bit of a balancing act sometimes. But we can make ends meet. And I get to be home enough to be a dad. Or I can be gone, and in 4 years I can increase my income substantially. But in 4 years, 2 more of my kids will be adults and possibly moved out. The household expenses will be dropping down. I will have missed 4 years of their life. I will have been missing these teen years that I believe is so critical to have a relationship with my kids. So he decided. Now here's the beauty of it. Because he and his wife decided together, when money was a little difficult, a little tight, and they're kind of having to juggle a few things to make ends meet, they were okay with that because they recognized we decided on this. We're not imprisoned by this. We made the choices that brought us here. And we could make the choices to do something different. We're in this situation because our balance of priorities led us to choose to be here. And so then they could go through it and solve the problem from a place of happiness and joy because they chose it. It's like, this isn't a prison. This is a decision. That, yeah, this month we have more month than we have money. That happens sometimes. We'll figure out how to bridge it. Why? Because we decided being a dad, being a mom, being with our children was more important than always making sure we have more money than we have month. We knew this was going to happen. And we decided on this. And there's tremendous power in that. There's tremendous freedom in that. And there's even tremendous joy in that. And rather than being miserable about it, they can sometimes look at it and say, okay, do we need to recalculate this? And no, this really only happens around the holidays. And this really only happens kind of in birthday season where so many of the family have birthdays, and it really happens around the holidays where now we're spending more money on food and buying the turkey and all the Christmas stuff. But other than that, we do okay. And so they decided, and so they can enjoy their lives. They can enjoy being a family more because they know it's a choice. And that you accept the outcome of the choices that you make. So focus on what you do have. Focus on what you have the opportunity to get. Focus on where you have power. Focus on where you decided. You took action. You created this. This was your decision. No need to be mad about it. No need to be heartbroken about it. You decided. That means you can decide differently next time. If you really don't like it, you can decide differently next time. You can decide differently from right here, right now, and walk it out differently going forward. Because you have the power. That's the opportunity. And you'll find that you live an enormously blessed life. Consider all that you have that wasn't even available just a few generations ago. All the blessings that Solomon himself could not purchase with all his wealth. At this very moment, I have an air conditioner on. I can hear the air moving around through the vents. If Solomon is going through a very hot day and he goes, you know what I really need? I need an air conditioner. I am the wealthiest man alive. Tell me, how much gold do you need to bring an air conditioner in here? Can't do it. Tough luck. But, well, you know, there's this guy over on the other side of the country, and I have a question for him. So how much gold do you need to get an email there? Couldn't do it. Doesn't matter. Like, you know, I want to look up some stuff. Can you get on the internet? And couldn't do it. The wealthiest man to ever live doesn't have access to some of the things as broke people could have today. By American broke, not global broke. Global broke is under $1 a day. American broke is hundreds, even sometimes thousands of dollars a month. And we consider ourselves broke. American broke has a refrigerator. Solomon didn't have a refrigerator. American broke is, we still have a freezer. Solomon didn't have a freezer. American broke, we have a library. Now, Solomon did have a library. But if somebody's not in his library, he can't just order it up from another branch and have it sent over like I can at my local library. Solomon didn't have the kind of roads we have. Solomon didn't have a car. We've got all kinds of stuff. Even those of us who consider ourselves broke, but based upon whatever standard we're using to decide who's broke and who's not. And we start to think about all the stuff the richest man to ever live could not have had. We do pretty well. So basically, like Abraham Lincoln says, people are pretty much as happy as they make up their minds to be. We live in the most abundant time in history. We have stuff we have access to that hasn't ever been available before. Even just at my age, I can look back at my own childhood and see what's different today, what is available today. If you just think about life being abundant, what is available today that wasn't available when I was a kid? Heck, stuff that wasn't available when my kid was a kid. I mean, sometimes I forget that my youngest was born just before 9/11. He has never had an experience of a pre-9/11 world. Which also means he's never had an experience of a world without internet. He's never had the experience of a world without personal computers. He's never had the experience of a world where you don't have cell phones. I mean, this is his world. This is what he grew up with. What are his kids going to have? What are his grandkids going to have? Who knows? But there's constantly more stuff available. I mean, until we have some kind of a total collapse of the world, things keep moving forward. And yet somehow we manage to pursue misery. And we could pursue happiness. Seek your blessing. Create your blessing. Take the opportunities that God dumps in your lap. Take the power God has given you to choose. And think about how important this power is. God transcends time. That means God's omnitemporal. To God, all time is now. That means he knew Adam and Eve would sin when he gave them this free will thing. He even built a system so that they only had one rule. They only had one way to disobey God. But he already knew they were going to take it. But he needed them to have free will. Free will was important to God. He wants your life to be a choice. They chose. But he still wants a relationship with us. So what does he have to do? There's his only begotten Son. Jesus, God, the Son of God. He has to do this Trinity thing just to make it work. He has to tear himself in two and kill himself and resurrect himself. Do this whole God becoming a man thing. Why? Because he gives us a choice. He could have saved himself an enormous amount of pain by just deciding that we don't get to decide. That is how important it was to God that you have a choice. How are you going to use that choice? I was chatting with someone earlier this week about love and forgiveness, and about loving yourself, letting go of the past. And here's what part of it boiled down to. God loves you. Satan hates you. Who do you choose to agree with? Satan wants you imprisoned and trapped. God died to give you a choice. Do you want trapped or do you want choice? Who are you going to agree with? Are you going to agree with the devil who hates you and wants to destroy you? Wants you to live life wounded and bitter as a victim? Or are you going to agree with God who loves you, wants you to have a relationship with him, wants you to experience love, experience forgiveness, and to have the power to make a choice so important to him that he would die so you could have a choice and a relationship with him? I kind of think God's deal's a little bit better. I'm going to kind of go with God. It seems to me that God kind of knows what he's doing. Seems to me that God's agenda for my life is a pretty good agenda. Seems to me that going with the all-knowing, all-wise, eternal being who loves me and knows best might be the smart move. And that maybe, just maybe agreeing with the devil and kind of going with the devil's agenda might not be the best way to have the happiest life. Just a theory. You can decide. God gave you a choice. You're alive. You got that one going. Living in this country, so you have some liberty. You may not be exercising it. Satan doesn't want you to have liberty. God wants you to have a choice and to pursue happiness. You pursue happiness, you'd rather pursue misery. I'd rather pursue happiness. I think most of us would rather pursue happiness. And it's right there. Covetousness will destroy your happiness. So do something about it. Make a decision. Be content with where you are and what you've got. Content, discomplacency. You can change it. If there is any decision that can be made that will make things different than they are, you have power. Exercise that power. Thank you.